This day in sports history. It's This Day in Sports History, a member of the Sports History Network. More podcasts and more info can be found at sportshistorynetwork.com. It's October 14th, and this day was a wild one over the past 60 years. This is going to be a really fun episode. So let's start in 1992 with what may be the greatest comeback in Major League postseason history. A quick scene set. It's Game 7 of the 92 National League Championship Series between the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Atlanta Braves. The Pirates lead 2-1 in the bottom of the ninth. Bases are loaded with 2 outs. Here's longtime Braves announcer Skip Carey with the call of the final play.
A lot of room in right center. If he hits one there, we can dance in the streets. The 2-1. Swung line drive left field. One run is in. Here comes Bream. Here's the throw to the plate. He is safe. Braves win. Braves win. Braves win. Braves win. Braves win.
So that was pinch hitter Francisco Cabrera with a liner to left, scoring David Justice from third and a lumbering Sid Bream from second in Game 7 of the NLCS that sent the Braves to the World Series. So if you were around then, you probably remember that part. But there's a couple of things to know about what led up to that play. First, after Terry Pendleton led off the bottom half of the ninth with a double, David Justice hit a sharp grounder to second. Now, the usually sure-handed Jose Lind, who would win a Gold Glove that year, booted it. Pendleton wound up on third, and Justice was safe at first, representing the tying run, which, as you just heard, he was. If Lind makes that play, there's 1 out. Pendleton is still on third, but more than likely, knowing how the next couple of hitters went, the Pirates were going to win the game and going on to the World Series themselves. Now, secondly, just before Cabrera's liner to left, Pirates center fielder Andy Van Slyke yelled over to left fielder Barry Bonds to move in a little bit, take a few steps to his left. According to Van Slyke, he was trying to get his teammate to shift just a little bit so that a base hit wouldn't win the game. Well, in response, Van Slyke said that Bonds gave him, let's just say, half of the peace sign, and then did not move at all. Cabrera's line drive was very near where Van Slyke wanted Bonds to move to. Bonds fielded the ball, but he had to throw across his body to home plate, which carried the throw up the line a little bit, just enough that catcher Mike Lavalier's effort to get back to the plate was a microsecond too late. If Bonds had taken Andy's advice, there is a really good chance that Bream is out by 5 feet at the plate. Well, the Braves played the Toronto Blue Jays in the 92 series, but they lost in 6 games. And moving the calendar back a few more years to 1985, it was another dramatic walk-off in the National League Championship Series, this one between the St. Louis Cardinals and Los Angeles Dodgers. It was Game 5, and the series was tied at 2 games apiece. The game was also tied at 2 in the bottom of the ninth. Tom Niedenfuer was on the mound for L.A. Ozzie Smith came to the plate with 1 out. Here's legendary Cardinals broadcaster Jack Buck with the call.
Cardinals have left 10 men on, and they left a lot of men on early. Had a runner at third, nobody out in the first and didn't score. Second and third, 1 out in the second and didn't score. Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Crazy. It's a home run, and the Cardinals have won the game by the score of 3-2 on a home run by the Wizard.
Now, the Wizard of Oz was not known by any stretch of the imagination as a power hitter. He'd only hit 13 career homers up to this point in his then 8-year career. Add to that, the switch-hitting Smith had never hit a home run from the left side of the plate until he uncorked this one to win Game 5. The Cardinals would go on to close out the series in the next game to move on to the World Series against the Kansas City Royals. On this day in 1964, it was an improbable win for a U.S. runner in the 10,000-meter run. This was the Summer Olympics held in Tokyo, and to be honest, this was more like an impossible win. American Billy Mills was a 26-year-old Marine Corps lieutenant, but his chances for contending in this race, let alone winning it, were minuscule. His qualifying time for the final was a full minute slower than the man who was expected to win gold, Australian Ron Clark. In fact, the U.S. Olympic Committee felt that Mills's chances were so low, they did not even issue him shoes to run in. He was told, "We only have enough shoes for those we expect to do well." So Mills, a kid who grew up poor in South Dakota and was orphaned at the age of 12, did what he always did. He took care of himself, and he borrowed a pair of shoes from a fellow runner. The shoes didn't fit exactly right. In fact, they didn't fit well at all, and they caused him some pain while he ran. But it was all he had. So he took the slight by the U.S. Olympic Committee to heart, and he ran the race of his life. The field competing in the final was huge. It was about 40 runners, and what happened is that more than half the field was too slow to keep up with the leaders, and they created lap traffic. However, the lap traffic refused to give up the inside lane, which forced the leaders in the final laps to run in outside lanes like 3 and 4 just to get around them. Well, coming to the bell lap, Mills surprised just about everybody but himself, and he was out front, just a half step in front of Clark and Tunisia's Mohamed Gamoudi. There was a good bit of jostling up front. Clark moved up to Mills's shoulder and moved him to the outside. Then Gamoudi forced his way between those two runners and levered his way past in the first place, pushing the pace higher and higher. Down the backstretch, Mills trailed in third place by about 10 meters. But as they rounded the final turn, Mills ignited a burst of speed to rush past Clark and then Gamoudi to break the tape in a new Olympic record time of 28 minutes, 24 seconds. And he did it all in borrowed shoes. Mills became the first American to ever win the 10,000 meters in the Olympics. And let's finish it off with some quick hitters. This was a big day in 1990 for two future NFL Hall of Famers. Let's begin with Houston Oilers quarterback Warren Moon, who threw for 369 yards and 5 touchdowns in a 48-17 win over the Cincinnati Bengals. In doing so, he became the first player to throw for more than 20,000 yards in 2 different leagues. Moon spent 6 seasons in the Canadian Football League with the Edmonton Eskimos, throwing for 21,228 yards, while also leading the Eskimos to 5 Grey Cup titles. And then San Francisco's Joe Montana completed 32 passes for 476 yards and 6 touchdowns, 5 of those to Jerry Rice in a 45-35 win over Atlanta. Rice had a total of 13 catches on the day for 225 yards receiving. The 476 yards passing for Montana was a personal best. Rice's 5 TD receptions set a 49ers record for a single game. And on this day in 2002, Terrell Owens put his stamp, I suppose it's better to say he put his signature on a touchdown. The Niners were playing in Seattle on Monday Night Football. Trailing by 1 with under 8 minutes to play, Jeff Garcia threw a 37-yard TD pass to Owens, who made a nice adjustment on the ball to catch it and then score it. It was Owens' second touchdown of the night. Well, after the TD, Owens pulled a Sharpie pen out of his sock, autographed the football, and handed it to a fan in the stands behind the end zone. Owens was not fined by the league for the incident, but the No Fun League office did issue a rule after this that said no foreign objects can be hidden in the uniform and carried on the field. The Sharpie that Owens used to sign the ball was sold at auction for $3,654. And time now for today's Nothing to Do with Sports Did You Know? Lyndon Johnson's life was spared because he needed to relieve himself. This was long before he became president, back in 1942, and he was slated to go on a bombing raid of a Japanese air base on the Wabash Cannonball. But before hopping on the plane, he raced to the restroom. When he came back to the plane, his seat had been taken by a friend of his, So instead, he got on another bomber. The Wabash Cannonball was hit by enemy fire, and all on board were killed. The other plane that Johnson boarded was also hit, but it was able to make it safely back to the airbase. That's all I've got for you today. Check back tomorrow for another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.